Hola, bona tarda. Chizuru Matsumoto, del Museu de Kochi, Pedro Rocha, Museo Serralves. El que farem ara és que ens presentaran una mica el seu projecte, i jo els faré alguna pregunta de curiositat, però ràpidament us passarem perquè vosaltres també feu preguntes de curiositat. Us sembla? Chizuru Matsumoto, Museo de Kochi, Pedro Rocha, Museo Serralves. We wanted to do, they will present their project, and after I will make it some questions, but suddenly the questions will be through the other side that you ask to them your curiosities. Okay? Let's go.
Okay. Well, thank you for the invitation. I'm actually going to make kind of an overview of the work that I've been developing as part of the team of Serralves Museum in Porto. I'm part of the team of performing arts, and so I'm going to make a little bit of a history of this work that has been developed in the museum. So Serralves, for the ones that don't know this place, it used to be a private place. It was designed and created by this group of architects and landscape architects from the late 1920s to the mid 1940s. Eventually, the guy that was a very rich guy went bankrupt and had to sell this. It's not working. Sorry. Sorry, technical glitch. Oh, it's working now. Thanks. So this is the interior of the villa. The estate was comprised by this monumental Art Deco villa, and also a park with many gardens and also a farm. After the revolution in Portugal, which was in 1974, there was a civil movement in Porto that demanded to the government a space for contemporary art, or for modern art at the time. And they made a lot of pressure, and eventually the government decided to buy the estate of Serralves to build there a museum of contemporary art. It was designed by an architect, a Portuguese architect, Álvaro Cisa Vieira, and it opened, this is the interior, and it opened in 1999. The project of the museum had into account that Portugal was a and still is, very peripheric country in Europe, and had undergone almost 50 years of dictatorship with a strong cultural repression. And so the art scene in Portugal was very isolated from the rest of the world. So the idea with the collection and the museum was to go against this status and inscribe the art scene, the Portuguese art scene, in a wider context of the international arts. The opening exhibition, it was called Circa 1968, and it was kind of also the principle of the collection. 1968 is kind of a symbol for many major shifts in the art world that happened with many trends like arte povera, land art, conceptual art. Many of them happened more or less around this time. And so, and with this exhibition, there was a program of dance and music, which was kind of the root for the establishing of a performing arts department in the museum. This was the program that was at that time with Charlemagne and Simon. And in 2000 we opened the Serralves Auditorium, which kind of consolidated this department. So performing arts at the department, at the physical structure that was the main venue for our activities, and also at a team, a curatorial team, a technical team, and all these kind of coalesce in a structural in the DNA of the museum, which was very uncommon at the time. There was not many visual arts institutions that had inscribed in them a performing arts structure, organizational structure. So John Cale opened the auditorium. During the years, we have, of course, presented many artists and musicians. I work more with music, so this will be more focused on music, that were part of this era of the vanguards of the 60s and 70s, like Alvin Lucier or Pauline Oliveres. So many of them have been in the museum. But of course, not only them, also new generations of artists have presented their work in the museum. But there is this line of continuity. So there was also this concern about how these vanguards kind of permeated the actuality, how the artists of today also have kind of drunk from that generation. So there's lots like there were projects that kind of, for instance, mix film and experimental film and music through expanded cinema. Also, this crossroads between visual poetry and sound poetry. Also, experimental music, in the sense that in the 60s there was this sense that art was supposed not to have limits. So the search for transgression was something that was much embedded in the art practice then, and it is present in the experimental music scene. Also, the rejection of disciplines like the music, dance, visual arts, all these kind of more hybridized forms. The improvisation and collaboration is something also that is present. The break with the hierarchy between audience and artists, proposing new ways, new situations for sound, experimenting with duration. Also, something that comes also from there, the relation between life and art, which has infused a lot of political and social issues in the practices of today, and also how to build a collectivity, and of course also the institutional and cultural critique that has much been explored in the meantime. So this program was the Performing Arts program was thought as a program that was parallel to the exhibition. So for each exhibition, well, we would choose some exhibitions and we would work with them, not to illustrate the exhibition, but rather to create dialogues that would be meaningful and that could kind of feed each other. So, and this was a way of working during some years. Also, the architecture was very much a trigger for the performing arts, since there was many different spaces in the foundation that can be explored in many ways, and sound is very much a medium that can profit from that. So we used the galleries, even the garage we have used, the villa. The park was very much used, and also the auditorium has been used in many different ways using the architecture. But this logic of the parallel program to the exhibitions had a problem, which was a kind of hierarchy between visual arts and performing arts. So we always had to follow, in a way, the program of the visual arts. And so at a certain point, we realized that it would be important to have some kind of autonomy and start developing autonomous programs that would not relate to the exhibitions in the museum. And so this happened through various forms, like focus in a specific artist, like here with Mark Fell, with many different works presented through some days, or just projects that were presented throughout the year in performances with the annual program. Another aspect was also the Portuguese scene. So we also always have cared about the Portuguese scene, not only presenting the work they are developing, but also commissioning new work, and also commissioning collaborations with international artists, which for Portugal is very important because Portugal has always dealt with the problem of scale. Being a very small country is always problematic and the sustainability of the artists that easily run out of places where to present their work. Another issue was the relation with the city. So Serralves exists in Porto. And this is an example. We invited some curators from the city to create a festival called Trama, in a moment when Porto was, the municipality of Porto was a right-wing government that did a very big cut on culture. And so we decided to go into the city and explore the city. So we used many spaces, from squares, parking lots, swimming pools, all kinds of spaces, and making partnerships with the structures that existed in the city. Other way of connecting outside the museum was and outside the art world, for instance, was we did a project with the Sociology Institute that kind of mixed social sciences with artistic production. This one was called Documents. It was about the role of documentation and archives as tools for building up society and also for artistic production. Other project that we have had since 2004 is this very big festival we do every year. It's an annual festival. It started as a celebration of the anniversary of the museum and evolved to a very big event that runs for 40 hours. But it used to run for 40 hours, now it runs for 50 hours non-stop, and occupies all the spaces of the foundation with hundreds of activities. This is an important event. It's also, it has free access, so it's important in terms of democratization of the access to contemporary culture, but it's also a moment when audiences that are not really specialized gain contact with things that they are not really used to see, and it's amazing that these people are curious to see something that is kind of strange, and it's also an important moment for artists to be confronted with and to encounter audiences that are not their usual audiences. And it has been a very profitable and very rewarding event in these terms. Not really to build new audiences, but to kind of be together and through contemporary culture and experimental music, performance, or all the things that we present. This festival also has a warm-up in the city, and we kind of use different spaces with different projects. Finally, I would like to mention this more recent project that we started in 2015 called the Museum as Performance. It's a project that draws from the fact that Serralves was kind of pioneering in terms of presenting a program of performing arts in a visual arts institution. And the aim is to question how performance or performativity can challenge the museum and can question how the museum can exist today, and also the other way around, how a gallery space can also foster new ways to create performances. Of course, sound is very much present, so there's many issues that are addressed in the program, like the materiality of sound, the body of the performer, language or exiting verbal language, psychoacoustics. Many things have been addressed in this program, and well, we hope it continues. It has been very challenging, especially in these more recent years, in which the institution grew a lot to become a major art institution, and in that aspect, maybe closer to the mainstream. And mainstream always runs much more through categories, and it's much less permeable to more hybrid forms. And so it has been a fight for these last years, but we wish to continue. Well, thank you, and I will be open for questions later after Mark's presentation. Okay.
So it's me? Okay.
You can start, they are...
Okay, yeah. Hi, I'm Chizuru. Konnichiwa, hajimemashite. I'm Chizuru from Japan. I'm working for the Museum Arts Kochi. I'm one of the producers at the Performing Arts section. And I don't have an impressive slides, but instead I have brochures about the museum, but it's in English, so I have to depend on the technology that you can do the auto translations. But it tells you something. And so, yeah, you can just pass around and see what it looks like. As I said, I work for the Museum Art Kochi. It's a public funded institution, funded museum funded by the local government. So it's preliminary for the local neighbors, but because we locate in such a countryside, actually locates in the islands, one of the small islands in Japan. If you look at the Japan, see the map, and there are multiple islands that consist of Japan, and we are located in one of the small islands. So we are so far away from everything, and resources are so limited, and far from Tokyo, far from Kyoto. So when we need anything that we don't have, we have to hire, we have to ship everything. So we are not in a good condition to do anything, but because we are one of the public institutions that we also program international productions. So I think it's very important features to mention. So even though it says museum, it consists of exhibitions and the performing arts and a school program. And I'm for the performing arts section / films. And we, in the performing arts section, we cover local folklore, traditional performance, and also the contemporary performances like dance, theater, music. And sometimes we do the experimental productions as well. And within performing arts, we are not only invite international productions, or national production, but also we do co-production, commission work. And sometimes throughout the years, we like to go on research by ourselves and then to create a network with an artist so that we know, because we know the context of our local, so that we can contextualize the artist's idea into our local situation. So what we do is that we go explore what's happening in the world to meet the artists who might be the future interest of our locals, not fit into the what's the local interested in at the moment. Yeah. So sometimes when we do the co-production and commission, those projects are driven by the artists, not only coming from the arts, but from the artists. And sometimes we create music-driven productions based on the idea of the pianist who wants to create contemporary folklore that is like a ritual ceremony based on what we have in Japan. And also, yeah, well, that's one example. Maybe we okay. And also, as I said, as we have a school program, which we take it very seriously because our museum looks in the countryside, and Kochi is the name of the prefecture, and Kochi is the third smallest population out of 47 prefectures, which means that there are fewer children in the regions. And there are schools out there, but because of the smaller number of the children, there are a lack of art teachers in our locals. So it's not easy for us to cover all the art activities in schools, but we are in a partnership. We like to build a partnership with the local schools so that they feel accessible to what we have as a resource. And then sometimes we provide artists. We bring artists to the schools to do workshops, but also we bring the students to the museum by hiring a bus so that they can meet the art in front of you. Or sometimes we create a production, performing arts production for the children in the locals, so that children can watch theater performance at the local school gym. You have a gym in the school usually, which has a really big space, so that we can we can accommodate some sort of performance. And what else? And during the COVID year, it was difficult for us to not only invite the audience, but also you can imagine it was such a hardship for the school children or any children in the locals, because they are not allowed to communicate, have dialogues in schools and something like that. And one of the local schools has gamelan music instruments. If you know the gamelan, it's like a big orchestra from Indonesia. And because Kochi city has a sisterhood with one of the one of the cities in Indonesia, and they presented us the big one, the whole unit of the gamelan. And so during the COVID period, I asked the composers to create a new music for the children, so that they can practice, they can develop the new gamelan music, and at the end, that music becomes their music, because they are the one who made the final product of the music. And through the project, I wanted to not only highlight of the instrument itself or the practice of the music, but also, in fact, we have a small number of Indonesian people in our locals. So I was thinking the future is that when this music is getting very known in the locals, then maybe the our Indonesian community can recognize this practice, so that they can feel accessible to those maybe gamelan instruments, or maybe they wanted to use it. And then maybe future there is some sort of interaction between original local and also the Indonesian community. And this is not, it's still a little bit, I don't know how you call it. Maybe it's not really easy for the European people to think that because Japan is consists of islands, and it's how you call it. We are almost like we are the only ethnic city. Japan is the only one, and then there are fewer immigrants in Japan, so you don't see like different features. But once you see the foreigners, they're foreigners because they look very different from you. But do you interact with those foreigners? Maybe not, because they feel because they don't. If you, for us, not for me, but for us, maybe it's not easy to try to communicate with those foreigners because you're very. Because Japanese are very shy, so that if you feel worried, that then you don't really communicate with them. But if you have something in common in between them, it might trigger the communication between them. So what I wanted to achieve through the Gamelan project is that because you learn those instruments from a young age, and you notice that the culture coming from the foreign countries, that actually is it's a neighbor, your neighbors. So that I don't know if that makes sense. So that it brings a recognition between those between us and the Indonesian community in Kochi. So yeah, sometimes we work a small project with a bigger idea for the future. We're hoping that it's going to realize in a way sometimes. But yeah, so maybe I'll finish here. Thank you.
There is a... Okay, bravo. How many people is living in Kochi?
670,000 people.
600,000. Okay.
Hmm?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Is it all
Yeah,
small?
it's quite enough. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if you have to travel, well,
But
Kochi,
there is the prefecture, no? Also,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, and then the land of the Kochi is covered. 80% of the land is covered by the forest. So and there are multiple cities along, and it's not really accessible each other.
And do you have a program of residencies, no? Or...
I have to be very honest. We used to run it for 10 years, but because of the COVID, we had to stop, and it's thought that we postpone. But because maybe it's a good call, because over the past 10 years we developed a residency program, but the local artists or the local art institute, small art institution, recognize this practice is very useful. So other institutions started to do the residency.
Okay.
So, and they developed in their own way. And we thought that, maybe they are taking over some of the elements that we developed. So we decided to stop because they can take over, and then we move on, and then we can use that budget to different things.
¿Y Museo Serralves, vosotros tenéis programa de residencias para artistas?
No, we don't have. Well, we had a resident many years ago, a program called Mugachuan with these artists from the Basque Country. But it's not. We don't have a physical structure where we can host artists. But we do. Sometimes we kind of have the space to the artists to develop some kind of work. Even if we are not presenting it, sometimes we just give them the auditorium to rehearse or something like that. But we don't have a program of formal program of residencies. We don't have.